Hello, everyone. How's it going? Welcome back. Today is a very special day. We're gonna start with our season two of the podcast. So this is gonna be our first episode of the new rebrand podcast, The Service Journal. Welcome back to everyone. We had a great conversation in our last episode with Finance, and today we're gonna continue bringing more information and more leaders. Today, this is another special day just because this guest and I we deployed together and we were back in Hawaii, and we're gonna talk about his career and where he came from and where he at right now. He was born and raised in Washington D.C., not too far from here. For those that don't know, I'm in Richmond, Virginia, so 2 hours from here. From here, he joined the army in 2008 at 20 years old. He actually selected to be a 92 Yankee, a unit supply specialist, and we're gonna talk about that. And like I mentioned before, we met in Hawaii in 25th ID or back then. Now he's in Korea and Camp Humphreys. Now I welcome SFC Newsome, Antawan Newsome. Hey, how's it going, man? Welcome.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, it's great to having you on the show, man. Appreciate it for being here and say yes to my invitation. How's it going?
Oh man, it's great. So I want to start by saying, hey, this is an amazing platform. Just walking through the door, when I was invited on here, there was no way I was going to say no to Captain Callow for this, because I was not going to turn down a great opportunity to be on something great that's happening.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I look
appreciate it.
forward.
Appreciate it for being here again. Like him and I go back to like back in time. This is a small army. We like the people, the personnel or the service members that are in the army. They know we have our old saying that the army is a small place, right? This is a small place, so we all know one each other, right? So we have people all the way. Yeah. So okay. So let's talk about you. Like let's focus about who is Silent First Class Antoine Newsome. Just go back in time and then go back to Washington D.C. and then talk to us like who you are, where you came from, and how you're interested in the army. Like how just talk about that.
All right, so I'm Antoine Newsome, of course, and so when we talk about going back in time, and we talk about me, Washington D.C. I'm the middle child of two other kids by my mom. I grew up in a single family household. So my mom definitely had to do a lot to kind of raise us to where we are now.
Hmm.
So shout out to my mom and everything she does.
Hmm.
Um, so again, I grew up in Washington D.C. I had a younger brother, an older sister. We stayed in a 2-bedroom apartment, and throughout that time, I had to kind of learn how to navigate around having an older sister
Gotcha.
and also being a great older brother, but also being the middle child. It was often we used to always argue about just the remote of the TV.
Hmm.
So I spent a lot of my youth time outside, playing in the local areas. So um, again, back in DC. So I met my wife when we were in high school. Kind of fast forwarding it. Uh, uh, my wife is my high school sweetheart.
Gotcha.
So it's funny trying to talk about yourself. It gets a little a
Yeah.
little shaky sometimes. You talk about yourself. So I met my wife in high school.
Uh-huh.
Whereas though we end up moving out of my mom's house. She kind of been motivated me to become this adult that I am today.
Okay. So she
'Cause
was
she had
she was
got
the pillar behind what you are right now. So all your achievements right now you can relate back to your wife because she was like giving you that push that you needed at the time. Basically, that's what you're trying to say.
yeah, I would say she was definitely the drive that I have
Mhm.
today. My mom was the drive that got me to where I was, and then my wife kind of picked up the
Okay.
bag along that way and was the drive to take me to the next level.
Gotcha.
So uh, moving out of my mom's house was like one of the ideas that my wife has gave me. At the time, she was just my girlfriend,
Mhm.
and then she also was pregnant with our first child.
Oh,
And
okay.
living with my mom and about to have a baby wasn't like the most ideal
Situation.
situation.
Hmm.
So she was that driving force, saying, "Hey, we need to get our own place." And at the time, I was working 3 jobs. I was working at the
Wow.
Hyatt Regency in Washington D.C. I was working at Foot Locker part time and Lids. So we ended up moving into like a 1 bedroom apartment,
Okay.
still in D.C. She kind of made me want to do better. Not just for her, but at least for the outcome of our child.
Hmm.
So we ended up moving from that 1 bedroom to a 2 bedroom apartment. And then that kind of, once I stepped back and thought about it, I was like, I think I want to do something different.
Okay.
And it was a surprise to her when I said I wanted to join the Army. And she was for it. She was like, okay, let's do it. I've been following you this long. Let's keep doing it.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
so basically, what your story is telling us right now, that motivation that drove you to actually look for the army was your child that was coming soon, right? Basically, that was drove you like
well,
you. I
yeah,
want to do something else.
so it's funny because it wasn't the fact that that my child was coming, because he came.
Uh huh.
He already came before I
Gotcha.
joined the military, and it's a funny story about it because me and my cousin went down to the recruiting station first,
Okay.
and we tried to take the ASVAB, and I failed. And now I failed
Uh.
twice. I failed
Okay.
twice. My cousin actually passed on the first one, and he shipped off the basic. And once he shipped off the basic, I kind of lost my drive to even join the military.
Gotcha.
So I continue to work and do things. But then when once I realized, I want to give this thing a swing again, and the recruiter station was right across the street from our apartment. I ended up going over and say, I'm gonna try again. And then I passed the ASVAB. I
Mhm.
actually passed it. And even then I still wouldn't have joined the military at first because I asked my job, which is the Hyatt Regency. I was like, hey, I want to travel. I want to be able to move out the state and do, what I'm doing
Yeah.
somewhere else, because I was about to become the supervisor for the housekeeping department. And I
Gotcha.
was like, hey, I want to do this at another hotel outside, because I don't want to raise my kid in Washington D.C. in the same atmosphere
Area.
that I kind of grew up in.
Hmm.
And once they said, we don't have anything for you, I gave them a chance to decide. I said, hey, either you send me somewhere else, or I just passed the ASVAB. I'm about to go join the military. And they said, well, let us try to figure something out. I dropped my 2 week notice, and and then I just followed my heart and went straight into the service.
Yeah. So what was the difference from the first ASVAB to the second ASVAB? Like, what do you think? What was the difference? Like, not failing the first one versus passing the second one.
So I would say the first time I took it, mind you, I didn't join the military till I was 20 years old.
Hmm.
So when I first time I took it, I was 19. Um, and I don't think I really had my heart in it, because, well, the reason I was going to join, it really wasn't for the right reason in the beginning. My cousin was a sergeant first class in the Army, which is my older cousin,
Okay.
Aaron.
Hmm.
He was a sergeant first class already in the Army. He just moved to Maryland
Gotcha.
from Germany.
Hmm.
And when I went out to his house, he had a townhouse. He bought. He had this Dodge Magnum with the big rims on it. He had a motorcycle. He had every
Oh wow.
stereotype that you would think that a soldier would have.
Yeah, he had
But
all of them.
he had everything. He had everything. And to me, that was the dream I wanted. I wanted to live the
Gotcha.
Army dream, and he had all that stuff. So when I was like, yeah, I want to join the Army. So he lined me up to go talk to a recruiter out in Largo Town Center. And really, I didn't study for nothing. I thought the Army just needed people. So
Because we're
I just
talking
went there
about,
and just
yeah,
winged it.
we're talking about 2008, that the war was roaring, right? So it was like a lot of war happening, and then Afghanistan was happening, and Iraq and all this stuff, and you thought in your mind like, yeah, I mean, I just go take it and then go, that's it.
That's all I thought. I thought it was like, you can't turn me down. In my mind, the Army ain't gonna turn me down. They need me. I don't need them. And I want my Magnum with the rims. I want my house. I want the bike. I want everything my cousin just showed me. And then,
Wow.
I failed it. And I was like, well, reality hit. Let me go back to my
Check.
regular job, go back to my apartment with my wife. I mean, with my girlfriend at the time. And that's just what life is going to be like. So I didn't give up. The turning point was actually when the job was not willing to move me somewhere else.
Okay,
It's
gotcha.
when I said, let me go try something else, because I know the Army is going to send me somewhere. But that's when I kind of took it more serious.
Yeah.
And it's a funny story is about that is when I was trying to join the army, I did not finish high school. When my wife got pregnant, I ended up going straight into the workforce,
Okay.
because my wife got pregnant at 17. I was just turning 18. So I just factored in the math of it is this kid's going to need stuff. This kid's going to need food. This kid's going to need inframeal. I'm going to need to put a roof over our head. My mom can't take care of, me, my girlfriend, and our child.
Hmm.
So what I end up having to do is I end up just leaving school and I end up just following,
Wow.
getting into the workforce.
Hmm.
So I started out working at a nursing home. After I left the nursing home, I was doing housekeeping at the hotels and stuff like that. And then I got the side jobs. So naturally, um, when I actually passed the ASVAB, the Army took me to go take my GED.
Mm.
So when I went and took my GED, I passed the GED because that was one of the stipulations. You got to pass the
Gotcha.
GED. The Army actually paid for my education
Hmm.
starting out
The high
before
school.
because I was
Yeah.
on delayed entry. So it kind of helped itself out, and then I ended up shipping off to basic training and stuff like that.
Okay, and then just talk about that. So why the army? And I know you have your cousin, and he was telling you the life, but do you take a look on other services, sister services like Air Force, Marine, etc., or was straight army? I'm committed and I'll go.
Again, I'm coming from an army family. My granddad
Okay,
was in the
gotcha.
army.
Hmm.
My cousin was in the army. I got several cousins that was in the army.
Gotcha.
All enlisted. So I didn't have the grooming of an airman in my family or the grooming of a sailor in
Understood.
my family. I mean, I do have one uncle that was a sailor, but he's out there in Richmond. Matter of fact, so I didn't have that grooming of these are the other branches. I knew for certain that it was not going to be the Marines. I knew it wasn't going to be the Marines
Okay.
because you just see the commercials and no fault to the Marines. It's just
They're
you
trying to
just
sell you.
automatically think combat. That's all we got in the Marines. But then naturally I just joined the army because I was kind of
Yeah.
groomed for the
So
army.
so you have family, you have people that to look for in the family that actually were serving and served, and then that drove you to actually look for the army. And then what about the job? Like, do you want it to be 92 Yankee or something else? So talk about that.
So, um, so once I got down to maps and they started listing out all the jobs that I could get,
Hmm.
and they was like food service and this, that, and the third, and I was like, nah, I don't want to cook.
Hmm.
And they listed out all these other jobs. So the one, excuse me, the one thing that stuck out to me about becoming a 92 Yankee in my mind, I worked at Foot Locker and I worked at Lids and I worked in a stock room, so I knew um, things like inventory and stuff like that. Funny story about becoming a 92 Yankee. I thought that all it was is stacking boxes, counting boxes, and that's all you're gonna do. So so my thought process of becoming a 92 Yankee was just, okay, I'll be in a stock room, I'll be stacking boxes.
Okay.
There's no way they're gonna give me any true responsibility other than
Yeah.
count those boxes, move them over there,
Wow.
give these guys that box.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I got into AIT till I realized, man, they got forms and all types of stuff. And that's when
Property
I was like,
book,
this,
millions of equipment that you have to take care of. Like, I don't know what you're talking about right now.
yeah, yeah. So it was definitely different than what I thought it would have been. So knowing now what I knew then, I still would make the same decision, but I had no idea of what a 92 Yankee was or what a unit supply specialist was. In my mind, it was just box counting.
Yeah.
I picked the easiest of the tasks.
So for those that doesn't know that 92 Yankee does, can you briefly explain what they do? A 92
So
Yankee.
they're in charge of all the unit level supply, inventory management, logistical management that will help any functioning organization logistically. So we help provide anything from all classes of supply
Mhm.
to ensure that whoever's in the organization is capable to move forward and fight on any battlefield. So we're the suppliers
The
of
supplier.
the organization.
Yeah, you're basically are the supplier of the organization, help with the logistics, ordering, keeping the property book. You do a lot. Like 92 Yankees, like they do a lot on the unit. Like We call them that they are the best friend of the commanders, like TR, right? I'm Ryan wrong.
Yeah, but but you can say they're the best friend of the commanders. But what I would say is that everybody that says, "Oh, where's the 90 Yankees?" they swear we're never at work. They swear we're never there.
Nah, they're doing a lot of stuff. People don't understand like how what's the level of the Night of the Yankee. You might play the keys and the put your PC in the desk so people they think they're in the office, but you are doing something. You're picking up at the SSA. You're turning stuff in the SSA. You're picking supplies. So you're doing great things.
Of course, of course. I appreciate you for all those kind words for the 92 Yankee community.
I mean, I have to. I'm a logistics, so I know. I know. Okay, so select the night of the Yankee because you thought you were counting boxes and that's it. So what next? So you went to basic. So talk about that process. 20 years old, you had a child already. Your girlfriend back in Washington D.C. So how was that transition now? This guy from Washington D.C. getting shipped to basic. Talk about that experience.
So just before we go, so just to backpedal just a
Yep.
little bit.
Go
So
ahead.
before I left for basic, me and my wife got married January 15th, 2008. We had got married prior to me leaving because there was no way I was gonna leave my family behind, especially when we had she just backed me with going in the army. So we got married prior to me going to basic training. So yeah, I married my high school sweetheart
Mhm.
all the way up until so then I left off to basic. My whole family shows up to maps. It's crazy because you know everybody's just crying. You would have thought I was going to war already.
Uh-huh.
As amount of people that was crying there, everybody give me hugs. You stay strong. You do what you got to do out there. And I was just like, where am I going at right now? In my mind, I knew I was just going to go somewhere. I was going to get yelled at, and I just knew it was going to be tougher,
Yeah.
about it. But when I got to basic, it was funny because I told you my cousin
Yeah.
was already an NCO in the military,
Mhm.
and he knew my drill sergeant. So
Okay.
he called my drill sergeant and was like, "Hey, look out for this guy before he comes. This is my cousin. His name's Antoine." And in my mind, I'm like, "That's the hookup. That's the
Yeah,
hookup."
you know they're doing great things for you.
That is not the hookup. I don't know who's watching this, but if your family knows anybody in the drill sergeant community, I advise them not to call. Because as soon as I got off that bus, and I remember his drill staff sergeant Beckton, drill sergeant, he walks up to me. I'm standing in line, and he walks up and he says, "Hey, how do I know you?" And I was like, I'm
Mhm.
thinking it's just cool. I just hate you. I'm still Antoine from DC. I'm not Private Newsome yet. Private Newsome hasn't started.
Yeah.
This is new.
Mhm.
So I'm just like, yeah, I think you know my cousin Aaron. I'm just talking to him regularly. He said, "How about we?" He's yelling, and then next you know it, he goes up, he walks out, he goes up front, and then so I'm thinking I'm plugged in almost, because he didn't really treat me bad. He just
Yeah.
said whatever he said. Next he calls me up front, Private Newsome, come up front. So I don't understand how to break ranks at all. So I was gonna run straight through the middle, straight through the middle of the formation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he says, "That's not how you break ranks." And he makes me run
Okay.
left because it was the shortest distance. I run left, I run up front. So mind you, just to paint this picture for you, the packing list says wear a white t-shirt. I wore the freshest white t-shirt out the pack that you can
Nike.
buy from your
Nike.
local store.
Something
Yeah,
Nike. Something so
no,
fresh.
it, it didn't have no
Nothing. No, no
logo on
logo,
it. It
but
was
like it's
just a
fresh.
Hanes. It was a Hanes white tee. I'm talking about icy white, straight out the pack.
Mhm.
And they made me come up front. And he says, "You think your cousin is going to be able to protect you through this? Your cousin called. You thought you was getting a hookup." They made me. Now this is the first time I ever heard this. "I want you to push until I'm tired." I don't know how that works. I never knew how that works. And at the end of the day, I understood that they were trying to break a stigma.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it doesn't matter who they're not going to be able to get you through the tough times that you have to get yourself through. And it takes for you to learn it now
Yeah.
for
Of
you to
course.
understand the history. They made me roll left, roll right. That shirt was so dirty when I got into reception. Mind you, it's like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I
Do you
didn't know where this energy came from,
do you
but it
still
was fun.
do you still have the T-shirt?
No, I still have the T-shirt, but I do have communication with the drill sergeant
Yeah,
that brought me through there. He has definitely been a mentor throughout my career,
that's nice.
and and I think he stayed in contact more because he knew my cousin, and then it genuinely grew into when I became an NCO, he congratulated me and stuff
Nice.
like that.
Nice. Yeah, it's because like this is all about the army. Yeah, their sergeants are not bad people. Like for people that are listening, it's the system. The system works like that. The indoctrination they need. Like Sam Newsom said, he was Antoine from D.C. Now he's becoming a soldier in the U.S. Army, and there's some ways and regulations and rules that you have to follow. And that's what the purpose of being in basic is to teach you the basic rules of the army. Now you understand, but at the moment I bet you thought that why I'm doing this. Like I thought so. I think so, right?
I asked him while in basic training. I remember asking him, "Hey, how do I get out of here? I don't want to do this no more." Now I wouldn't have asked all the other drill sergeants, of course, because I didn't have that rapport with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
But I asked him, "How do I leave basic training?" And he says, "The fastest way to get out of here is to graduate." And at the time, I was like, I didn't want to hear that. I got a wife. I got a kid. You know what I mean? I'm grown.
Yeah, yeah.
No one should be yelling at me this way. And at the end of the day, he was right. Because if you would have stayed and tried to give up in the middle of it, they had a platoon full of guys that didn't want to graduate,
Mm-hmm.
and they just cleaned up all day. But I came and they were there, and I left. I graduated, and they were still there. So that's how long the process was
Wow.
to get them in and out. So
Mm-hmm.
to come in for 9 weeks and you see a group of people cleaning up, you understand their purpose, and then you graduate in 9 weeks and they're still there. That can also be like, yeah, this is the fastest way to go.
Yeah.
Plus, you're getting paid to do it. I had a family, so I was getting BH and everything like that from DC. So I was living pretty comfortable for a private.
Yep. So at the moment you were getting your benefits that the actually army was providing for you, your family, and then you were able, although you were getting jailed at the moment, you saw like the benefits at the long run. Like, hey, I'm doing this because like my family is receiving the BAH or whatever the case may be. I'm getting a paycheck that maybe it was decent at the moment comparing to the three jobs. Now you're just like playing the games on the army at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then that's just what it was. Like I said, one, I always had this fear of letting my sons down. So when I start something, I always try to finish it because what advice could I give my sons if I always started something and then I quit?
Mm-hmm.
I can never expect them to do something that I haven't done myself
There you
or
go.
I'm not willing to do myself.
Mhm.
So when I started basic, although my mind frame was like, I want to give up, but I always had that vision of, what presidents am I setting for those that's watching me? Those
Yeah.
that showed up at MEPS to see me off. What am I doing if I go back and I let them know, hey, it was too hard. It
Yeah.
was too hard for me, and that's why I need to come back.
Yeah, and
So,
then
and I think I led that way throughout my whole career.
yeah,
Is that that's who's watching me. My sons are watching me, so I have to keep moving forward. So it was times in basic training where I was like, "This ain't it," and I think most of it was
yeah,
those early morning wake ups, those yells down the hallway, and things like that. But naturally, the more phases you go through, the easier it kind of get. The process does
yeah.
get a little easier,
And we're
and
talking
you build that teamwork.
yeah,
Everyone's going through it.
and we're talking
You know.
about this is in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, when you went to basic, right?
Yes, Fort Jackson, South Carolina,
Yep, and then
which wasn't so relaxing Jackson at the time. I just want to say that before
yeah,
everybody be like, that was relaxing Jackson.
yeah, at the time, yeah, we understand. And then I'm gonna show you the picture. I think this is the first picture we're gonna talk about. Just talk about this. It's like young
Oh,
science specialized Newsome right here.
so yes, that was me at the graduation of my that was right out. So when you about to graduate basic training, they have family day, and that's when my family came, right? So in 2008, and I like this picture because in 2008, we still had the canteen belts. We had
Mhm.
the belts with the canteen on. That's what we used to drink water out of. When you go around, you always had to have your canteens filled, and you had to have your weapon. Well, the significance to this was that camelback that's on my back was the first thing I bought from my basic training. Like once I graduated basic training, I wanted a camelback because the drill sergeants had camelbacks and things like that. And naturally, you see them,
Mhm.
you want to kind of be like them a little bit. So I
Mhm.
bought that camelback, and my family came down, and as you can see, I had a bag full of stuff like snacks and stuff. Because once you about to graduate, family day is full of snacks. You going to the PX, the big PX too, not the little one that they only take the privates to. You went to the big one where you can eat Popeyes and all that other stuff. So that was the significance. But the funny thing with that camelback is when I wore it to AIT, the first sergeant says, "Take that Scuba Steve thing off your
The
back."
school.
So you couldn't even wear it. I couldn't
Yeah.
even wear it in my AIT. They made me take it off. So I went back to the pistol belt again.
Yeah, so now that you mentioned, let's transition to AIT. So now from basic to AIT. So what was the big difference now? Like, okay, coming out of basic to AIT, that you just mentioned that, yeah, take the scuba thing, whatever the case may be, out of the back. How was the transition, and what do you learn, and where do you go for AIT at the moment?
Okay, so AIT was funny too. I feel like every place that I went, in my junior years, there was something significant that happened to me as I arrived at every last location. So I got to AIT. This is when they said everybody can have cell phones, this, that, and the third. So I was fine with a cell phone. So I get out the vehicle. I go stand in formation because I got dropped off. And because I went to DC between basic and AIT because my AIT was still closed. They let my family take me home for the weekend, and then my family dropped me back off. At AIT. So I'm in civilian clothes. And then I'm standing in line, and I remember this dude. This is a transition between drill sergeants coming out of AIT and AIT platoon sergeants taking over. So I had Drill Sergeant Covington, who
Mhm.
had just became an AIT platoon sergeant. So he kept the badge because he finished the class, but he took off the hat.
Gotcha.
So my phone rings, and and I remember it was a Lil Wayne song. Uh, it was a Lil Wayne song that rang, and I'm standing in formation, and Drill Sergeant Covington says, "Who phone just rings?" So I say, I'm quiet for a second because
Uh-huh.
I don't know what's about to happen next.
Uh-huh.
So I be quiet. So integrity kind of kicked in. So he says it again with some authority, and I was like, "Mine, drill sergeant." And then he says, "Get over here." So I run over there. I said, "Drill sergeant, I was told that we can have cell phones," and his direct words were, "Ain't nobody said you can have a ringtone though. Go over there and low crawl and high crawl." I was low crawling and high crawling outside because I'm a Papa Company alumni. That's the one of the original
Oh,
92
Papa
Yankee
Company. Now it's whiskey
schools.
company,
I
right?
mean, yeah, companies. So yeah, they and whiskey companies right next door. So this was in the old building. He made me high crawl outside in civilian clothes,
Wow.
and then he took everybody else inside. He forgot that I was out there. He came outside and he said, I remember saying it, "Dang, private, you still out here high crawling? Get up, go in there. You need to end process." I, Intro to AIT. That was my intro to AIT. But again, um, through every dark storm, there's always, light at the end.
Yeah.
Because closer to the end, he became more of a mentor than a drill sergeant or AIT platoon sergeant.
Mhm.
You start noticing why they break you down in the beginning. Because although you would think I got broken down to AIT, but in basic, there's only so much stigma breaking they can do in that time period. So that's why you have two levels of training prior to you going to the operational army. So when I got to AIT, he still saw those traits. So he had to
Gotcha.
kind of dig in a little more.
Mhm.
But again, when I finally graduated AIT, and he was a really good NCO, I actually ran into him again on my first deployment in Afghanistan. He was a first sergeant. And 92 Yankee, he passed this point of contact, and just like any other person. So yeah, I think AIT was significant. I learned a lot, and that's when I learned that my job wasn't just stacking boxes. I learned about the forms. I
Yeah.
learned about, at the time we had PBUs.
PVs. Yeah.
The system has changed since then. I learned, how to do weapons maintenance because you do because the MOS actually has armor qualification too. So you do arms room. So I learned a lot that I felt like I did not know was entailed into the job in my initial picking of my MOS. So yes,
Yeah.
that's how AIT went.
And then can you speak like a regular day for like a AIT student for those that doesn't know and listening right now? Like it's just a regular day.
So a regular day for AIT student was you wake up, you do PT. Well, you're gonna wake up with the drill sergeants, and
Mhm.
I think later on we'll discuss
Yep.
this because I can
Yeah,
speak
we'll
on
be there.
the soldier side, and I can
And
also
then you
speak
can
on
go
the
to
AIT
the
drill
other
side.
side. Yeah.
So yeah, you wake up in the morning, of course, to drill sergeants waking you up.
Okay.
And when people sit there and say, that I could just get up on my own, this, that, and the third, of course, but sometimes you need that added help. So you're gonna get woken up by the drill sergeants. I know life has changed since I went to AIT. I stayed in the open bay, whereas though now soldiers have rooms and
Yeah.
things like that. So, 4-man rooms. So you're gonna wake up, you're gonna do PT. After PT, you're gonna go shower, or you're gonna go to chow and then go shower. And then from there, you're gonna go to school where you're gonna sit in school for the duration of the day. You're gonna learn everything from your from the cradle to the grave of your MOS. Now, when you graduate, you may not be 100% proficient
Yeah.
because a lot of people graduate and go into different various positions. You may go to PBO, or you may go to a unit supply, or you may be a unit armor.
Mhm.
So it's to give you that vast overview of knowledge of what your MOS entails, to have you prepared. So when you actually get to your organization,
Mhm.
that NCO that's there is going to train you on how the current operations is being ran in that specific organization. So from start to finish, wake up, PT, school, get your lunch break, go back to school,
And then
come back. But you will go to the field. You will go to the
yeah,
field for I think like four
FTX.
days, 4 or 5 days, and you will do your MOS qualification while in the field. But
FTX.
you do have to pass all the exams while in class.
Yep.
So it is definitely going to give you a lot of knowledge and a lot of tools to put in your tool bag. That's going to set you up for success for the long period of your career.
Yeah, so basically you are in a school environment just like more like rigid, right? So you'll have your days are gonna be like very like regulated. So you're gonna have PT at school, you go lunch back to school and then go bed and then but the end state of the AIT is they're gonna teach you your MOS, they're gonna teach you how to be proficient, and like you mentioned, you're not gonna be the SME at the moment. You will not be the subject matter expert at the time. You're gonna gain with the experiences as you transition, and we're gonna get there. But that's basically what AIT is. For those that doesn't know that AIT, but now it's more relaxed than basic, right? So it's like a more relaxed environment talking towards the
Um,
drill sergeants.
so so it can be a more relaxed environment. However, the level of professionalism is still there.
Mhm.
You still have drill sergeants for a reason,
Mhm.
to kind of maintain that not just that professionalism, but that also that military bearing.
Gotcha.
So you're still going to march, you're still going to sing cadence,
Mhm.
you're still going to go to the field, you still got to deal with the drill sergeants, you still subject to the same level of support that the drill sergeants provided. I like to say support that the drill sergeant provided in basic. So you're going to still get somewhat of that same supporting system that the drill sergeants will provide you in
Gotcha.
AIT, although you do have a little more room to kind of expand out. So you do get like weekend passes and stuff, like not weekend passes where you spend a night, but like day passes where
Day
you can
pass,
go
so you
out
can
for
go
the day to
out
the PX and come back to the barracks.
or
And
outside.
so you get
Yeah.
it's better to prepare you for your next assignment
Got,
opposed to preparing you to go to more training.
gotcha. And then okay, so AIT, and then do you know that where you were going next, or how that, like I know you're gonna go to Fort Riley, but at the moment, do you know like where you're going to Fort Riley at the moment?
So it's funny because when I was coming through, they used to put your name on the board, and then they had like blocks, empty blocks next to it. And then every day you have to go check the board because they'll have an assignment next to it. So every day, so I watch people get assignments going to Korea. I watch
Gotcha.
people get assignments going to Germany, and they were just coming out the room crying. I'm talking about crying,
Wow.
like
Yeah.
not happy because
Yeah.
you gotta factor in a lot of the people that are going through these things have never left home.
Yeah.
Have never
Yeah.
left home.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
And so it's almost a culture shock, you
Yeah.
know, like, okay,
100%.
I've never been out the comfort of my family before. So now, granted, some people in your school are National Guards, some of them are reservists. So a lot of them are going back to the house. They already know where they're going, you know, but for those that are active duty, you know, they haven't been away. So to say, not only have you not been away from your home, but now we're sending you to another country. So, you know, you
That's
got to
shocking.
figure out the fear level of that of a person, you know. So some people go and they enjoy it. Some people are looking forward to the opportunity, but most they're not. Most not because they don't really understand. You say I'm sending you to Korea. First thing people think is, oh, it's a war going on there, and then they get here and realize it's a lot better than what they thought.
Yeah.
Now I'm one of the people who kind of stayed away from Korea for his whole career too, because I wasn't ready to go overseas, but then I ended up taking one and I enjoyed it, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for me, I walked in there and I saw the board that said Fort Riley, and the funny thing is, I asked I asked the sergeant, I was like, "Where's
Where's
Fort
Fort
Riley?"
Riley?
Because it didn't have
I
a
can't
state
imagine.
next
Yeah.
to it, and he said it's in Kansas. Now, mind you, I'm from D.C. You know, I'm not gonna sit there and say I was the brightest bulb in the world, but he said it's in Kansas. I was like, "Where's Kansas?" You know, because you never hear no one say, "I'm going to Kansas."
Kansas. Yeah.
You know, and coming from DC, I've never heard no one say, I barely heard anybody say they were going to North Carolina, which is like a 2 states over. So let alone to hear someone say, hey, I'm going to Kansas. And I told my wife on the phone, hey, babe, we're going to Fort Riley, Kansas. And my wife was like, where
Huh?
is that at?
Huh?
You know what I mean? And it's funny because when I graduated AIT and I had to go back home to get my family do the household goods thing and everything, and they came and packed up everything. So we get our tickets and we get to the airport and we flying in the air and we land in Kansas City. So Kansas City, we was like, okay, this is what Kansas looks like. It's a city, you know, it's gonna be good.
Yeah, like
So we get, hey, look,
like,
we get on this little plane, and I'm talking
amazing and
about a little
everything.
propeller plane. Like the propeller plane looked like somebody had to turn the propellers on. They only had 2 rows in the whole thing. And the guy that's flying the plane looked like he like 16, you know? And it was like, next stop, Manhattan. And then I was sitting there, I told my wife, I said, baby, I think we got on the wrong plane. We about to go to Manhattan, like New York. It was Manhattan, Kansas, you know? So that's why I was like, yeah, this is definitely, we landed in like a cornfield or something. Like it wasn't a cornfield, but the airport is like in a cornfield. You know, it was like one of those really, really small airports. So that was my initial reaction to Kansas, you know.
Anyway,
So
but so Kansas is in the Super Bowl this year, though. So for those who doesn't
yeah.
know, Taylor Swift and the Kansas City.
So it's growing. Of course, I think now it's growing a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I think they even expanded out the airport now or something like that.
Yeah.
But when you came out the airport, only thing you saw was car rental spots. And I remember, you know, I don't know if I'm going too far ahead. I don't know if because I'm already going into the first duty station.
No, yeah, you can go
But,
ahead. You can go ahead and go to the first duty. It's okay.
But you know, I landed, and when we landed, I just remember it was this one they still had payphones, you know, because they don't have payphones nowhere no more, you know. So and when you go to the payphone, they had this little placard over the payphone, like if you're going to Fort Riley, call this number, you know. So I called the number and I say, "Hello," reception answers, "Hello, this is Private Newsome. I'm at the airport." He said, "Okay, stay there." Click.
That's it.
I was like, it was like some FBI secret agent stuff. Like the package has been dropped by click.
Okay, and then what happened next?
So I'm waiting. So it's funny because my wife was like, "What did they say?" He said, "Stay there." Click. It just hung up. So, you know, my wife, we have never so that was the first time that we moved. That she moved outside of DC. So for us to move somewhere like Fort
from
Riley,
the city, like from the city to Fort Riley.
So you know, and that's why I applaud my wife a lot because she puts a lot of trust in me. She put a whole lot of trust in me. Because if those roles are reversed and you sit there and be like, "Hey, I'm moving to Kansas," you know, and you be like, "Why? Trust me, we're gonna go to Kansas." me and you gonna go. She gonna be like, you'll be like, you'll
Will
be a
be
little more
great.
skeptical, but yeah, it's gonna be fun. And she just went. She went with it. So we got there, and then the van comes to pick us up, and then he takes us there. They don't really talk to us in the car or nothing like that. We just drive over to reception. The reception was like this old looking building, and all he told us, he took out information, and he says, tomorrow's PT, you need to be here at this time.
Wow.
So then they take us and they drop us off at the on post lodging.
Uh-huh.
Now, granted, I've never done this before, and I've never traveled with a family. So everything I've ever done is always trying to figure it out along the way, because again, I have a wife, I have an infant child, and they're all looking towards me to kind of make these decisions to make them comfortable. So I call. We get to the lodging, and the lodging people say, "Hey, your lodging is up on the hill. You can't walk there." Now I got bags of stuff. So by the grace, I had a battle buddy from AIT who drove his car there.
Mm.
So he went home, got his car, he drove there. Sergeant Griffin, and I still talk to Sergeant Griffin now. That's funny. So he picks us up. We load as much bags in his car, and then some guy was at the hotel too. He put some stuff in the back of his truck, because I needed that, because when I called reception, say, "Hey, my hotel isn't right here," they told me call a cab, and that was it. Hang up again. That was the most
It's cut and dry. Like,
streamlined, dry as, this is what you got. But he picked me up. He took me up to the hotel, and shout out to Griffin, because like I said, if that's why I express the importance of keeping in contact with your battle buddies from AIT, and because you just never know who you may know. Like you said, Captain Callow, is it's everywhere we go. We always the Army's small, so we always kind of keep those networking.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I met you in Hawaii, and we still communicate to this day. So if it wasn't for me building that relationship with Griff and AIT, because we went to basic and AIT at the same time. If it wasn't for me building that relationship with him, I would have had to figure it out even further, because he not only dropped me off and picked me up dropped me off at that hotel, but he picked me up every morning and took me over to the PT area where we did PT for reception.
Gotcha. Yep.
So, which ended up becoming a blessing, because me and him went to the exact same unit. So we went to 24th Transportation Unit together. So we were in the same supply room.
Okay.
I was the armor. He was the supply. Supply clerk.
That was some of my question, like how the Night of the Yankee got to there. But now that makes sense. Like they were doing two different jobs.
Yeah. So we had a supply sergeant. So that was Sergeant First Class Baskins at the time. He was a staff sergeant. He just pinned Sergeant First Class, and I didn't know the significance to that at the time, because I was just a private. So I was just, oh yeah, you're gonna stay here. But once he got promoted, he had to move out and go to
a different position.
He had to go to S4.
Yeah.
But which was funny, because they left us without a supply sergeant. So me and Griff had to become the supply sergeants ourselves. Now we're like PFCs trying to run a supply room. But to go back, like I said, Griff helped me out a whole lot, getting us back and forth to the unit. And at the time, then I was able to get a car. I got a car, I got a place on post and stuff like that. And on post housing is great, because I grew up in apartments in DC. We didn't have grass. We didn't have anything. We just had the neighborhood, and it was a lot of people. Whereas though when I got to Fort Riley, they gave me a townhome, because I had a son and my wife, so they gave us a 2-bedroom townhome. We had a kitchen. We had a whole open backyard, no fence. It was just open. Like it was like the Army's version of like the hood, but it was, because, and I don't say that in a bad term. I say that because it's a lot of people living in this one neighborhood, in junior enlisted housing. So it was a lot of kids. It was a lot of people. It was a lot of fun for that time frame, and I feel like the more senior you get, the more housing gets quieter. The less kids are there. The less, eventful things happen. So living there, it was fun. And then, like I said, the more we did about 3 years at that duty station, and and that's when I deployed and everything from
So
there.
yeah, so we're gonna transition to a deployment. I'm gonna show you the picture here. Talk about this picture.
So the picture, this picture right here was significant because that was my first duty station, of course, and we were getting ready to head to our first deployment to Afghanistan, and the three of the well, four of the service members in this picture were 92 Golfs, and then the one in the back with his hands around him, that was my supply sergeant, Sergeant Brown, which was a great 92 Yankee who had reclassed over because I think he used to be a tanker prior to that. So, but we were getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan to our first deployment, and the funny story about going there, because this person is not even in the picture. Harry B. Master Sergeant retired Harry B. Willis. He was our platoon sergeant at the time, and I've never deployed in my life. It was like the scariest feeling, but because I knew who I was going with, I wasn't as nervous, if that makes sense,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I felt like I knew they had my back if things ever got bad. So when we were getting ready to leave, I remember kissing my wife and kissing my son, and then my mom, and then my dad came out there and visit, and they drove them all back to DC. So when we were getting ready to leave, we got to Afghanistan, and well, we didn't get to Afghanistan yet. This is when you had to go through Manis in between. So you flew out of America, and then you went to Manis, and then we got to Manis. So Harry B, he was our platoon sergeant. He used to give us all types of scary stories. Yeah, when we get down there, you're gonna have to lock and load. Things get real. Soon you get there, it's the
Oh,
most serious event.
okay.
So I remember landing in Manis, and Manis was like a safe zone. That was like a transitional period point. And we're coming through the gates, and I remember all the barbed wire being up on the wall and all that stuff. And then it looked like on X-Men when they were going through the concentration camp. I
Okay.
don't know if you
Yeah.
ever watched
Yeah.
X-Men, but
Yeah. I know.
um, so we were going through there, and here go Harry B. Harry B was like, "Oh, this is real. Hey, get your mind in the game. Get your mind in the game." Now, in my mind, he knew we were in a safe zone. He knew we wasn't in a bad part in Manis. It wasn't Afghanistan yet. So he was like, "Get your mind in the game." He was like, "You got your ammo?" He was just psyching me out. I was like, "They didn't issue me ammo. I don't even have a magazine. What's gonna happen?" So he did this, and it was like the most nervous thing ever. And then I remember us gearing up to get on like a C-130. We were gonna fly into Afghanistan like 2 days later, because they make you do like 2 days in Manis,
Okay.
and you get to enjoy, not enjoy, but kind of go through briefs and get everything. And I remember going to the DFAC in Madison, and they had full size Snickers and stuff like that. And in my mind, I was like, deployment's giving out full size Snickers. I'm happy. This is not bad for me. This isn't the worst situation.
I'm
You
okay
know,
with Snickers. Like, it's okay. I
yeah,
don't have any ammo with me, but just give me a Snickers. I'll
no.
be fine.
Do you know it takes little to no effort to really make a soldier happy in a bad situation? Like you something as simple as a Snickers
Wow.
made me
Mhm.
happy. You
Wow.
know what I mean? But
Yeah.
of course, I was able to give that one phone call to my wife, and I was excited about that, and tell her, hey, I made it to Manis. But then when we landed in Afghanistan, we flew on the C-130. We got a Kevlar's on, all that stuff. And once we got in there, Harry B was like, "Yeah, this is it right here." Man, I remember us riding down. Now we was in Kandahar. I remember us riding down, and I saw TGI Fridays or something there. And I look, I look over to Harry B, and I was like, "How serious is this about to be? Like, that's a Fridays. That's
Yeah.
a Pizza Hut right there. Like, but ideally it had its up and downs. It definitely had its. I was
Yeah.
in the transportation unit, so I got to, go out to some of the areas that they went out to. So I understood that life outside the gates was a lot different
Yep.
than what the
Definitely.
than some of the things they had inside the
Inside.
gates. So I got to meet a lot of great other leaders and other people while being there, other armies. I got to meet so many different people through the many activities that was happening around post. So, I thought that was significant because if it wasn't for those individuals that was in that picture and some of the other individuals that wasn't in that picture, A deployment can definitely go the opposite way. It could
Yeah.
be the worst area. It could be the worst thing you ever experienced. But if you have a good net, a good team, a good communicative leadership, you actually find yourself a lot more at
Yeah.
ease at what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, the
Yeah, go ahead.
no,
So,
go
so,
ahead.
so yeah, so we let's keep in mind that the life, and you mentioned this important point, the life outside the barbed wire or the gate was different than inside the barbed wire, because definitely, and we've been deployed, right? So what they're trying to do is like to get the soldier the amenities they need to relax and focus on other stuff versus being outside the gate all the time, firefightings and AI explosive and everything like convoys. So I think it was a way to compensate the soldier, like, hey, once you come into the gate, you can have all these amenities. When you out the gate, it's game on. I see it that way. I don't know if you feel the same way.
And that's exactly what it is. You know, you don't want to go outside the gate and be in war and then come inside the gate and still be in war. Like you're still in war, you're still on alert, you're
Yeah.
still prepared for whatever
Mhm.
happens next. But it's the little things that keep you with some type
Yeah.
of sanity so that
Mhm.
you're not
Definitely.
so on edge that you don't you go back to your family and you have no clear understanding of how life should be.
Mhm.
So it was those TGI Fridays that I could go to and I can say, okay, I feel like I'm still in somewhat of a comfort, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Or just going to Green Beans and getting a coffee. You know, those little things is the things that still ties you back into less of a war related mentality
Gotcha.
because you're in war, but it gives you that sense of
Yeah.
I can calm down, I can decompress a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
Even when they
Definitely.
have activities, football, stuff
Yeah.
like that, things
Mhm.
that keep you tied to
Mhm.
something that you can remember from home,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, definitely, definitely. I think that that's what this does at the same time, and the army do it that way, so we can decompress our soldiers that much because we understand we all have brothers and sisters. I have my own experiences that I lost like relative, not relative, but like people that I knew on war, and I bet you too, or along your career, we know somebody that have been lost in the way, but it is what what we do for a living. We are committed to like to 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 continue doing this in our career and then like do the commitment. Okay, so going for Fort Riley and then next duty station to drum. So how was that transition now from DC to Riley out of nowhere? Now you're going to Fort Drum, which is cold, and a lot of people complain about the coldness. Talk about that.
So one, uh, Fort Riley is freezing too, and you could
Hmm.
walk out and get black ice anywhere.
Hmm.
And you know, so when I went to Drum, me and my family we drove from Fort Riley to Drum for our PCS. And I remember driving because it was like 20 some hours, you know, and that's when I was younger, when I could just drive 20 something hours. Today, Sergeant Newsome, I'm not trying to drive 20 hours. I would ship a car and
And then
fly if I have
fly.
to. Yeah. Because you understand the time that it takes to get certain
Yeah.
places, you know.
Yeah.
So we drove all the way up to Fort Drum. And I remember now, this is before cars already came embedded with GPSs. You
Okay.
know, I was just talking to my wife the other day, like, how did we get around with MapQuest? Because today you start talking about, MapQuest and how it gave you all the printouts, the step by steps of where you need to go. So we had to follow that type of,
Yeah.
that thing. And so now you got GPS on your phone. You never
There you
should be getting
go.
lost, you
Yeah.
know.
Unless you
So
lost
we
that
driving up
signal.
there, we're driving on the highway, we're getting up there, and I remember seeing the sign says like Mexico,
Okay.
because upstate New York has like something like Mexico or something, but it's not real Mexico. It's like a little city or something.
Okay.
Uh, and the only thing I can think of to my wife is, I hope we didn't drive the wrong way. I hope we didn't go the wrong way.
It's
you
funny. It's
know?
funny because Alabama has a town that the name is Cuba, and I was driving. I was like, "Did Alabama has a Cuba?" Like I don't know, but in your case, it was Mexico. And you thought you were
Yeah, can
going
you
to
imagine you
Mexico.
just see those lights of the border and you just like, this is not gonna be good.
It's
I gotta
crazy.
call somebody and tell them I'm gonna be late. So we drove up there. We got there to Fort Drum. Now it's funny because a lot of people avoid places like Fort Drum.
Hmm.
They think it's cold. They think there's always a problem. Now, mind you, when I drove up there, my wife was pregnant with our second child. So
Okay.
we had she got pregnant when I came back off the deployment. So that's how our second child's like our deployment baby. You know what I mean?
Right
A
into it.
lot of soldiers know what those are.
Yeah,
So
right into
uh,
it.
so she was pregnant, and we got up to Fort Drum, and I remember because again I haven't grasped the concept of reserving on post lodging before you get there and doing X, Y, and Z before like the whole PCS list. Now they have this thing called the Army Rucksack or something, and then in there you have apps now that you can download that help you outline everything you need to do for your PCS. So I didn't know that. I wish they had that back then, but because I would have had a better understanding of what I need to do when I PCS. But now I still didn't. So I got there to Fort Drum and I tried to get on post lodging. They was like, we're booked up, fully booked. Now I never been to Drum again. I don't know anything. So I'm driving around the hotels trying to get us hotels. And I remember getting us a hotel at this trucker stop. And and so we walk in the room. Now my wife's pregnant. She's mixed with emotions and things like that. And we got her sister with us. Her sister flew out and drove back with us. So we go up into this place, and my wife walks in the room and she just busts out crying. She busts out crying. And I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, I don't want to stay here. Now, as a soldier, we could stay almost anywhere. There's no place we can't sleep.
Hmm.
You give me a clean wall and a nice little floor, I will lean myself up against it and go straight to sleep.
Hmm.
But I gotta be understanding to my family.
Hmm.
So we go into this hotel and she doesn't like it. She doesn't want to stay there. It doesn't look safe. And in my opinion, it really didn't look safe.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay. So I end up finding something closer into town. And we stay there for the duration. But Fort Drum definitely became a positive place because the leadership there, became are so much embedded in taking care of the soldiers. Yeah,
Hmm.
they deal. I was in First Brigade under Colonel Michael, which is General Michael now, and Sergeant Major Martell and Sergeant Major Bass and things like that. But they genuinely care about the soldiers. They generally. I remember I was working at the Brigade 4, and the Sergeant Major Bass came up there, and he didn't. We were about to deploy again to Afghanistan, and he wasn't arguing about living quarters for him. He wasn't arguing about the good stuff for him. He was arguing about warm socks for his soldiers, for his infantrymen that were going to go out, and do patrols.
Hmm.
I thought that was phenomenal
Hmm.
because you see a lot of people that's where am I going to stay at? Where am I going to be doing? To
Nice.
hear a senior leader argue tooth and nails about how do we get socks for my people,
Hmm.
you know? And I thought that was phenomenal. And to
Nice.
me, Fort Drum logistically, they really took care of us, all the logisticians, because they understood the importance of what we provided to the organization. So it wasn't like you're just a 92 Yankee, get to the side. It wasn't. It's funny because First Sergeant Mills, he was an infantry first sergeant. I'm talking about tabbed up, had everything. And I had just got selected to become the PBO NCO for the
Hmm.
brigade. And First Sergeant Mills says, I'm only going to sign your clearing paperwork to get out of the unit if you go to the education center and you enroll in college.
Nice.
Now,
Good.
mind you, no loggy NCO told me this. Nobody in my branch came and said, go get a degree. Now, this is during a time frame when it really wasn't making NCOs get degrees.
Hmm.
I was a sergeant and things like that. And he's an infantry first sergeant, and his goal was, I need to get a degree.
Hmm.
And I that impacted me.
Nice.
And even when I got my degree, I reached out to him. But that's the type of culture that they kind of built. It wasn't just feel, break you down. It was
Nice.
like mentorship, prepare for the future,
Hmm.
and things like that. Now there was some long runs, some 7-mile runs they like
Yeah.
to do, ranger speed, and you really had to get into it. There was some field exercises you had to go to, but when I say that they cared about you and your family, like I woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was about to get dressed to go to PT. I think PT was like 5:30, 6 o'clock, something like that.
Mhm.
And my wife tapped me and said, "Hey, just hold on for a second." So I was like, "What's wrong?" You know, like mind you, she's pregnant. So I'm like, "What's going on?"
Mhm.
She says, "Just give me a second." And I think she was getting ready to, like, she was having like the contractions and stuff like that, and they were hitting. She said, "Oh, yep, the baby's coming. The baby's coming."
Mhm.
So now I'm scared, you know. So I remember calling down to the leadership and said, "Hey, my wife's about to have the baby, this, that, and the third. Hey, man, take all the time you need. Congratulations." They were more excited on the phone for me
Nice.
than I was. They were like, "Congratulations, bro. You
Nice.
need anything, man, just take the
Cool.
time you need.
Yep.
Don't worry about the leave form. We'll get that all drawn up for you. You'll just sign it when you finish at the hospital."
Yep.
It's like,
And
man, that's amazing. I was like, that you don't expect that out of combat arms
yeah,
sometimes. Sometimes you expect you and people assume that a lot of them will be like mission
go
first, you
go
know,
go
come
go
get out
go.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is before the whole people's first incentive. These people were practicing people's first
Nice.
in the beginning.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And a lot of my most encouraging moments came from some of those combat armed leaders
Okay.
who still reach out to me to this day, and say how proud they are of things that I'm doing and things. So I appreciate it for Drum. I
Nice.
think Fort Drum was like a point where I thought I was gonna get out,
Mhm.
but
Okay.
when I met those type of leaders, it made me want to stay in longer because I knew they exist now. You know, not saying that I didn't have good leadership in Raleigh, but you know, when when you're mission, sometimes it kind of flaws of the purpose you're there because you want more time with your family.
Yeah, of
They
course.
actually they actually had a good balance with
Good.
how they took care of you, you know. So you didn't have to go to everything. You
Mhm.
had to go to what you needed to be at. Take care of your family. Stuff like that.
Yeah, so that goes back to there's multiple different experiences in the army. Like we all have good leaders, we have bad leaders, but in this case, you have great leaders that took care of you and your family, and you appreciate, and you'll follow them wherever they'll go, because like they'll take care of you, they let you take care of your family, and again, this organization is all about the people, all about the service members, right? Like that we all are one big family, and then if I take care of you, I know you're gonna take care of me. And then like you mentioned before, you went to a war, the war zone, Afghanistan, and you were following people that you know they have your back, and it's all about it. Because like if we go into a mission, we go off outside the gate, I need to rely in you. Doesn't matter, I'm a captain, you're a certified class or E5 or E6 or whatever the case may be. At the end, we just going towards one mission, and you talk about the great leadership I'm sorry, for Drum provided you that in that moment. That's great to hear, though. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll tell you this one thing before, you know, when it came to Fort Drum,
Hmm.
you know, even when we did deploy, because they were the first ones to take me on this isolated location of deployment and
Hmm.
where we really didn't have all the same perks as my last deployment.
Hmm.
And you know, it was like day and night when it came to the deployment, but it was I had so much fun with those guys because they always found something to do, and it wasn't like everybody lived in better situations. We literally were living in tents and shoes and stuff like that. And you know, when we at one point in time we didn't have like cooking food anymore. We were eating MREs, and it was funny. I mean, it wasn't funny because at that moment, I'm looking in the DFAC as we're all eating MREs, and the brigade commander's eating the MRE,
Hmm.
and the brigade sergeant major's eating one, and all the leadership is eating them because this is what we all are in this same fight together,
Yeah,
you know. And I think
very cool.
that's when I was like, you know, this is amazing.
Nice.
This is amazing. They didn't run and say, well, this we're gonna go eat this and go over here, or you know, trips out and go do. No, they ate the MREs. They stayed in there
Yeah.
with us.
Yeah.
It was a fight that we were all in together, and I appreciated that.
Nice. Okay, and now let's transition to their next duty station, Hawaii. How was that change now from Drum to Almighty Scofield Barracks, Hawaii? So talk about that to us. And
No coat, no coat. I didn't need a coat. I didn't
no
need a coat
cuts.
for 4 years.
Yeah, there you go.
Uh, it
How
was
was it?
amazing. It was amazing. I loved Hawaii. You know, I never thought I was gonna go to somewhere like that. That was so beautiful. I remember finding out when I was going to go to Hawaii. I was going to Hawaii. I was on CQ in Drum, and retention NCO said, "Hey, I got Hawaii. I need an answer if you want to take it."
Hmm.
Man, I called my wife because every duty station, I always talk to my wife
Yeah,
and say,
of
"Hey, what
course.
do you think about this?" I give her a choice. Some choices we can take,
Hmm.
and I have that the right to say no. But sometimes, we have to go with it. But Hawaii was like, she was like, "Yeah, say yes, say yes." I remember my wife saying, say yes, call him back. Don't call me, call him." And I hung up and I called him back. "Yeah,
Nice.
we'll take Hawaii, lock it in." And I got there and I was assigned to the sustainment brigade
Hmm.
there. And one thing about being in a sustainment brigade, what people don't know is it's a constant move. They're constantly moving. They're constantly going. They're part of everybody's mission.
Hmm.
So when you think that, oh, it's just sustainment, so we're not going to go to the field as much as the infantry or the artillery or whatever the case may be. Well, we're supporting every exercise.
Hmm.
They're going out consistently. Like even you and I were in the same company.
Hmm.
We were sending teams out to go out to everybody's mission. Although I didn't go out on all, I did support a lot of them, And then when we go to like JRTC or NTC or things like that, you know, naturally we have to go to those too.
Hmm.
So I enjoyed it, but I will say that Hawaii was one of my more busier moments because I did deploy from there to Kuwait with the battalion.
Hmm.
Excuse me, and then I did when I came back from the deployment. I transitioned over to 40th with you when you were a PL, and then
Yep.
the XO.
Hmm.
So uh, it was an eye opener to how many missions that those organizations really put their soldiers through. But luckily, they sent them out in teams and
Hmm.
try to give them a rest period in between. And then
Yep.
I transitioned from there to the trans company. So I did get a clear understanding of how the full scope of the operation
Hmm.
worked when it came to the sustainment from the unit level perspective, of course. So I loved it. I learned how to ride motorcycles out there
Yeah, that's what
because
your passion.
everybody,
Yeah, it was a passion
yeah, that's
began.
that's my true passion is
Hmm.
motorcycles right now,
Hmm.
But I remember when I first wanted a motorcycle because I was riding down the Hawaii highways, and it's either you had a drop top convertible
Hmm.
or you had a motorcycle.
Hmm.
And I wanted that motorcycle. I wanted that wind. I wanted that wind in my hair. I wanted that lifestyle. I loved it. So I got to really learn how to ride motorcycles in Hawaii. So I enjoyed the beaches. I enjoyed the food. It's nothing like those daggone food trucks out there in Hawaii.
Hmm.
So yeah, I loved Hawaii. I did an additional year and I stayed for 4 years. So
Yeah, yeah. So Hawaii had a great mission again for the sustainment brigade. Maybe soldiers might not understand what they're doing at their level, but in the big scope of the operations, when you're in like a leadership positions, like you mentioned, we're supporting the whole island, like everything in the island, from the port all the way down to the unit level. We have the rushes like moving like containers across the island. We have mission going in and out. We're going to PACOM to the Pacific. We're going down to SECOM, which is all the way to Afghanistan, Kuwait, etc. So when you see the level of logistics that we were managing as a brigade, it was huge. It was good. We were like
I,
with a big part of the mission.
I don't think people understand that, when it comes to staying in the fight, we're the first ones in, well, we're somewhat the first ones in. Of course, if it's an area that has to be, had to be assumed first,
Hmm.
combat, related, then yeah, we may not be, we may come in right behind them. But
Hmm.
we're the last ones to leave almost because everything has to move through the sustainment. You like you said, the transportation, from the transportation to the fuel. We had laundry and service, and I remember when we did that, when we went to JRTC, we were there first in the beginning because we had to wait till all our trucks get there and,
Hmm.
and, and stuff like that. And then we last one is leave
Hmm.
because everybody needs their trucks and stuff towed back to the port.
Hmm.
Laundry and service and stuff need to be still happening. So logistics happen through and through, and they're always like in the beginning and at the end.
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
It's a nonstop cycle. I would say
Mhm.
that when it comes to sustaining the fight.
Yeah, definitely. And again, Hawaii was a great experience, at least for myself. I was like a brand new second, like a junior lieutenant. At the point when I was a platoon leader, like I understand, I can put that my perspective because sometimes I will not understand what I was doing. I was getting thrown at me a lot of missions, but now that I'm more senior and then I'm in another capacity, I can look back and say, like, okay, this is what we were doing at the moment. I understand now. Again, maturity and knowledge come with. Now for Lee. Now I have this picture here. Let's start introducing for Lee. So I'm gonna put you right here. So let's talk about this.
Okay, so with this picture, so this is me in drill sergeant school. So I PCS from Hawaii to Fort Lee because I was overseas. I was considered a turtle. So I was pretty much hanging around the drill sergeants. I walked with the drill sergeants. I pretty much shadowed them until I went to drill sergeant school. So I went to drill sergeant school, and this picture right here is day 0 of drill sergeant school, and that's the female yelling at me. That's First Sergeant Simmons. And she's like big right now in the Army. Shout out to her and all the great things she does. First female Ranger,
Mm,
African
nice.
American female
Hmm.
Ranger.
Hmm.
So she's doing outstanding things. I think she's heading the Sergeant Major Academy soon too.
Nice. Nice.
But however, the significance of this is she came up to me, and as you can see, my uniform is a little messed up.
Hmm.
One thing about drill sergeant school, I would tell you is you would think that you are an outstanding NCO no matter what, but drill sergeant school will tell you you're not. They will show you you're not. And I wore that uniform because I knew I knew it was about to be bad physically. And I remember her coming up to me and saying, "Why'd you wear cook whites to your first day of drill sergeant school?" And I said, "These are not cook whites. Now don't mind the picture. The light has my uniform looking like it's 2 different tones. It's a shadow at the bottom and light at the top. But nonetheless, um, she came up there. Next, you know what? They just let in on me. They let in on me, told me, I could have did better and this, that, and the third. I learned from that experience to do better. I did.
Hmm.
I didn't take it in a negative light. I didn't walk away with the they don't know what they're talking about. I actually, went out and got better uniforms and prepared myself for the next day.
Hmm.
So drill sergeant school was pretty much 9 weeks, 10 weeks or something like that. And you had to pretty much go from like the soldiers do. You go from basic, you go from red, white, and blue phase, and you go through all the different levels of basic training again.
Hmm.
But except doing drill sergeant school, you have to pitch the modules and do everything like that. So it's a little more mind-boggling than when you went to basic, because when you went to basic, you just did what the drill sergeant told you to. In drill sergeant school, they're teaching you to be a drill sergeant and to be able to teach the soldiers what they need to do to go forward. So that picture was significant because, that at that moment, I was a staff sergeant at the time, but at that moment, I walked in as a staff sergeant, but I felt like a private when I walked off the field. I felt like a
Not
private.
bad. Not
So
bad.
naturally, when I got to Fort Lee, so I was in Black Sheep platoon in drill sergeant school, which anybody that was a Black Sheep drill sergeant know that was one of the hardest platoons to be in at the time. And we started out with like 106 or something like that, and only 48 of us
Oh
graduated.
wow. Oh,
You
that's
know, so
yeah.
so when people think going to drill sergeant school is going to be like the easiest thing ever, it's not. It's not. Sometimes you have to prepare yourself for failure. I failed one module and I had to repitch the next day. And mentally, I was like, man, this is crazy. So, but again, like anything I ever do, I don't start it unless I don't start it if I don't intend to finish it because I look at what am I setting for the people that's looking at me from behind.
Hmm.
And I watch many people go to drill sergeant school, don't pass, and they have to go back to their
Yeah.
units and don't and then have to explain to everybody on how they didn't make
Yeah.
it through. So I didn't want that for me. And I think God really challenged me by putting me in the hardest platoon, in my opinion, to be one of the better NCOs because I knew that I was wrapped up in my bubble. I thought I was a really good NCO.
Hmm.
I was a good supply person. I was a good 92 Yankee.
Hmm.
But I could do better as being a non-commissioned officer. And
Nice.
and Black Sheep definitely grew me to be a better non-commissioned officer.
No,
So
that,
when I
That's perfect.
fast forward, and I got to my first assignment, which is Papa Company,
Mhm.
like I said before. So 10 years before that, I was a private.
That's
10
great,
years after
right?
that, I was a drill
Right,
sergeant
that's
in the same
crazy.
company.
There you go.
And it was amazing because the amount of uh, mentorship and shaping the minds of a lot of the soldiers that are in the army today was like one of the most highlighted things that I could ever say I've done. I think that's the proudest moment. And anybody that wears the drill sergeant badge will probably agree that that's probably one of your most proudest moments
Mm,
of being a non-commissioned officer, because at that moment you were able to give back to the future of the army,
nice.
regardless of who they are,
Mhm.
regardless of where they came from.
Yep.
You were able to instill somewhat pride into being a soldier in the United States Army. Now, do everybody make it through the process? They don't, and that sometimes
Mhm.
that's a hit because you feel like you lost one. You know, it's like having a child and your child goes in the opposite direction of you.
Mhm.
Sometimes you feel that way. You know, like, man, I really wish I could have saved that one, but you can't save them all. Some
Yeah.
has to go home, and that's the way that the process works. So Fort Lee was definitely an exciting um, duty opportunity. I was able to be a drill sergeant at AIT, and most people would say AIT drills don't do a lot. I feel like AIT drills do a lot when it comes to the day-to-day operation and the life of what a soldier is going to be in the
Mhm.
future. You know, so I enjoyed it. And like you said, we both have mutual friends that are still on the
Yeah, right
trail
now.
at Fort
Mhm.
Lee,
Mhm.
and yeah, so I loved Fort Lee. I thought it was great. I had outstanding leadership. You know, I was there from the transition from AIT platoon sergeant to drill. Uh, Back when I was a private, I was there
Yeah.
from the transition from drill to AIT.
Mhm.
So I never was an AIT platoon sergeant. I went straight to drill sergeant school, whereas though they were sending AIT platoon sergeants back to school to become drill sergeants. So yeah, I mean,
And
I enjoyed it. I recommend a lot of NCOs decide to
to
go
do that.
become drill
Mhm.
sergeants,
Mhm.
although I don't think it's in everybody, but I think
Yeah.
the amount of knowledge I learned while there and the amount of soldiers I was there with, I enjoyed it. You know, I had doctors. I had a doctor in one of my platoon. I had a lawyer in one of my platoon. These soldiers aren't coming in like when I came in. These soldiers are smart.
Yeah.
These soldiers have degrees. These soldiers are reading the regulation. These soldiers understand the task
Mhm.
somewhat better than us as leaders. So, you know, it made me really realize that what the army has and the potential that they are assuming, you know,
Yeah.
when it comes to these soldiers. So
Yeah, but the one thing they mentioned, like, so first of all, you grew up in Papa Company, and then years later you came back as a drill sergeant. That's a big achievement. I think it's a big sentiment, right? Like, hey, I'm here like now as a senior NCO when I was just a private. That's the first thing.
mhm.
The second thing is you can become like a mentor of one of many of the 92 Yankees along the run, right? So you'll mention across your timeline that you have mentors that like drill sergeants along your career that you look at them saying like, hey, can you mentor me in this X, Y, and Z? And now as a drill sergeant, you can become that mentor for those new 92 Yankees, right? In that position that you're like, maybe you can keep along the way.
Which is what's happening here. Like so, Korea was after my drill sergeant, of course, but
Mhm.
the significance is a lot of those 92 Yankees that left the schoolhouse, I see them now in the force. So when I
Mhm.
go TDY, I see them at different locations, or you know, if I'm in the gym, they'll see me in there and they'll come talk to me,
Mhm.
and things like that. You know, when I first came off, I was a little more standoffish, you know, because I was like, let me just, you know, bridge that gap before my time frame, because you know, you gotta like 6 months after you know, graduate classes and stuff like that, you got to kind of give it that cool down period. But naturally, you never really know the impact that you have left on people, because they reach out and they'll say, you know, thank you, drill sergeant. I really
Mhm.
appreciate everything
Nice.
you did. Because in
Good.
AIT, you don't just have privates or soldiers. You have MOSTs, so that's the people that's coming to reclassify. So those are already that range from anywhere from private all the way up until sergeant first class that may be reclassifying. So you have people reaching out from all different walks of life that's saying thank you for this or thank you for that. I be out in the gym sometimes, and soldiers will walk up to me and say, "Do you remember me?" And I'll be like, "I don't." I was pushing 60 soldiers out at a time, and it was just me as a drill and my two instructors. So sometimes I don't remember, but I still pass the part like a point of contact if they need anything. I just had a training here at my current organization, and I think 5 soldiers in my class were in my platoon when I was a drill sergeant, and it surprised them when they walked in the room because they didn't know how to address me. They were ready to. Now these are ranging from specialists, and some of them are non-commissioned officers already, and they still
Mhm.
come up. Drill sergeant? No, not drill sergeant, just
Yeah, you're
sergeant,
good, man.
just
You're
sergeant.
good. Yeah, no problem.
So it's amazing to watch your product move.
That's
Watch your
pretty
product
awesome.
flourish
Yeah,
out
yeah.
here in the army, and to see their names on emails and realize they're running their own thing right
Oh,
now. So it's beautiful
great.
to see it. I think the hardest thing though is if people are becoming drill sergeants, is keeping their personality.
Mhm.
Don't lose yourself because you got the hat on. Because a lot of people will lose themselves
Okay.
in the midst of being a drill. If you wasn't a yeller as an NCO, don't be a yeller as a drill sergeant.
Mhm.
You know, if you were a mean person there, be a mean person there because you got to keep the same thing because soldiers can smell when it's not you. They
Okay.
know when it's not your personality or you're trying to be something
Mm.
other than. So be yourself.
Yeah, be yourself.
And like I tell anybody, being yourself is what got you in the room.
Mhm.
Don't try to become somebody else once
Mhm.
you get in the room.
Yeah.
You already accept it.
Yeah, there you go. And then I think, do you want to talk about this picture, the significance of this picture, particularly?
Okay, so this one here, that's my dog Zeus.
Mhm.
That's Zeus. That's my actual dog. So my platoon was Dog Pound, and the reason I chose Dog Pound is because when you think of a dog pound, and you think about where the dogs go. There's a variety of different types of dogs there. There's poodles, there's Yorkies, there's bullies, there's everything in there. And I looked at my platoon as that melting pot. People came from all different walks of life, all different areas. Some people are dads and moms. Some people are just coming out of high school. Some people are from different diversity of life. And I looked at my platoon as that melting pot, and I say, we all are part of the dog pound because nobody knows. We didn't all choose to be here. We came here, yes, of course, but we didn't choose to be in this particular platoon. But we all had to get along. We all have to live together in this whole situation. So a lot of soldiers took that dog pound and they ran with it. So every last one of my platoon pictures, I always had a dog in my pictures. And this was my last one. That was my last one. And I brought my dog in Zeus to be in the last picture.
Yeah, that's a great story to mention, right? So you have that significant to they transmitted to your AIT soldiers, right? So, and again, it's great to hear these stories. And then I'm gonna show you this one. I think it's the same on the school when you
So
were there. Yeah.
so I chose this one. I chose this picture because so if anybody would know me, they know I don't mind talking, I don't mind mentoring,
Hmm.
I don't mind give stopping and giving advice. Or in most cases, I'll sit down and listen to what's going on. So I chose this one because what better picture to pick that I'm willing to talk to almost anybody
Hmm.
than talk to a bunch of kids in school. And I remember this day. So that's my battle buddy in the corner, Drill Sergeant Smith. Well, now Sergeant First Class Smith, of course. Um, we were in that room, and I remember going out to the school. I was tasked, "Hey, we want you to go out to the school, talk to the kids." And first thing I was thinking is, I have kids. What do you talk to kids about?
Hmm.
When it comes to the army, what am I there for? So I created this whole little slideshow of all the coolest things I think the army has. Like planes, helicopters, trucks, medics, MPs. I just created this whole little pre-recruiting slide or whatever.
Okay.
And I remember taking it to their class, and I showing it to the kids, and the kids was like, "Ooh, hi!" And they just wanted, they were just so excited about the military, and I like that picture because I feel like as leaders, we have to meet people in their ballpark sometimes, and we think that the way we do things ourselves is the only way,
Mhm.
and it's not literally the only way. You have to tailor yourself to meet the audience that you're talking to, and something as simple as talking to kids. the first time I went out, it was just like, oh, okay, my dad's a soldier, or this is a soldier, yada yada. But when I created this whole little visual aid, and the teacher put it up there, and the kids saw it, they were just so interested. They were just so like driven into it, like, and I love that the innocence of the kids is just
Nice.
like there. They just, if you see a helicopter fly by, you and I see a helicopter, we're gonna be like, oh, it's just a helicopter. When
Yeah,
you show a kid a helicopter
they'll be
and you tell them,
amazed.
people like, yeah, people jump out of that helicopter. They like, they jump, and the
Oh,
questions that they ask is just so amazing. So I learned from that experience that no matter who I talk to, I have to tailor the information based on the people I'm talking to, because at the end of the day, like Sergeant Major Bell from he used to be the HQDA Sergeant Major, and he came and talked out to my senior leader course when I was in SLC. And I remember him saying, always be added value to the conversation. You know what I mean? I took that as, how do I add value to a conversation? And sometimes it's just tailoring to the audience you're,
hmm
you're dealing with.
hmm
I may not be so immersed in every conversation, but I'll listen a lot. I'll
nice.
listen, and then I'll see where do I fit into the problem that you're giving me,
hmm
and then I'll provide advice based on the area that I am. But if you don't have anything to say, just sit in the back and just listen to the information. But if you do, add that value to the conversation. And in that one, I went one time, the kids didn't buy into it. When they sent me again, I had a visual aid, and I figured out, what do I need to grasp the attention of these kids, and that's what I did.
Yeah,
And it was great.
that's great because like you can tailor, you can actually know your audience and know how you talk. If you can explain to a kid how the army works, you can explain anyone basically, and that's basically you created their own word. It's like talking about their terms, like, hey, you like Fortnite? I'm gonna relate something from Fortnite to the army so they can understand, and we can go and back and forth, and basically that's what you created this word for them. That's great.
Exactly. I mean, and and the Army is now doing a lot better on
Yeah.
recruitment when it comes
hmm
to games and adding people
hmm
in. You see, they got teams.
Yeah.
My son plays Fortnite, and then I think one day he signed up for one of the Army competitions, and next his phone started ringing with recruiting.
Yeah.
I had to tell him, my son's 15 years old. He ain't ready yet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're utilizing the more
Yeah.
modern technology to reach out
To,
to
yeah.
those that are interested.
To
So I
to
think that's amazing.
yeah. That's great to hear. Now, from Lee to Korea. Now, for Lee to Korea, or for Great Adams. Now we've been talking for Lee, but for Great Adams to Korea. So okay, so mentioned earlier, like, okay, so people think that Korea you're gonna go to war, but now I'm here. It's not that like bad. Talk
So
about Camp Humphreys.
so let me brawl back into this before I got to Humphreys.
Yeah.
COVID happened, and I was getting ready to go to Humphreys. Um, and at the time, I had to really educate myself. Thank God that YouTube people were dropping videos about in processing the Korea,
Okay.
and
Okay.
and things. I love the fact that people use the technology to educate people prior to them going places.
Uh-huh.
Because COVID was a crazy time frame for everybody, and to come to Korea during COVID, you pretty much had to like climb mountains to get into the country.
Mhm.
So you had to get your COVID test and all that.
Yeah.
So um someone dropped a video saying, when you come to Korea, you're automatically going to go into a COVID barracks room with your family for 14 days. And
Quarantine.
these are the things you need to pack. So we went out and got a tough box. My wife put like a hot plate in there. Now she put like all types of stuff in there that we can carry, snacks, things like that would, keep us comfortable. Toiletries, bleach, all that stuff. And that's why I will always say that I have a great support system when it comes to my wife and
hmm
my family, because
Nice.
the things that I don't think about is the things she
She
does.
thinks. Hmm.
So I'm thinking about getting into Korea. So I'm thinking about, we need COVID tests. I'm thinking about, we need passports. We need orders. So I'm thinking about all these things. She's thinking about, pack a tough box, put this in our luggage. We need to bring these things. So it was more like a team thing, in order to get into a country that
Hmm.
neither one of us ever been. So I remember us leaving Fort Lee, because you had to get your COVID test like 72 hours in advance. So we go get our COVID test, then we immediately get our results, and then we go straight to the airport. I'm talking about, I got a tough box. We got 4 bags. It's just crazy. So we jumping from airport to airport. I felt like we traveled for like 4 days.
Wow.
It just felt like that. Because when you got to Seattle, to get on Patriot, you had to wait until like midnight to check in, which I understood that process because I did that process when I went TDY to Kuwait. So that's why I had to tell my wife, look, we need to go stand in this line if we want to be the first couple people. So I remember us getting there like 7 or 8 o'clock p.m. And then we went up there and stood in line. And my wife, I had to tell her, we need to stand in line because this line's going to get crazy here soon. And then sure enough, the line started bending all the way down the road in the airport to get on the plane, which once we got everything checked in, we had our COVID stuff, we had all the paperwork, and we got to Korea immediately. We went into the briefing room, and then they gave everybody COVID tests again, and they put everybody in the COVID barracks. Now, in the COVID barracks was like one barracks room with 2 rooms, and they put 4 beds in there. And I remember my kids was like, this is amazing, because they never stayed in the barracks. This is whatever. For me and my wife, my wife was like, this is crazy. She was saying like the room's not clean, but luckily we had everything we needed inside of our tough box. Everything she got us. So, we got to cleaning up the room. We put the 2 twin beds together to make it a full size bed. So me and her could stay on one bed. And, they gave us a Wi-Fi puck and everything for the room. So it was good. But then like I said, you trying to do 14 days in a room with just your family, and it's not the size of a house, it's the size of a room, So, but luckily we got the ETP and we was able to come out the room and I was able to go in process and we got a Texas Roadhouse there. The first place we went was Texas Roadhouse.
Texas Roadhouse in Korea? Come on.
Texas, because we couldn't leave post. It was COVID. They wouldn't let you leave because until you finished your 14 days, you couldn't leave post. So you was only subjected to everything. And we're walking through, I remember us walking through the PX and I'm just like amazed. Oh my gosh, because I was just in the COVID barracks for like 5 days before they released me on the ETP. So I'm like walking through PX like amazed, and we went to Texas Roadhouse and we tried to do stuff around the installation until we was able to release. And then we was able to go out and get a house off post and stuff like that.
Nice.
So, but coming to Korea has definitely been amazing. Being assigned to my current organization was definitely, I feel like I have some of the best leadership, supportive wise, that allow me to really enjoy, because coming from being a drill where you have no time, to coming to here where I had an abundance amount of time to really take my family on vacations. We've been to Philippines, we've been to Thailand, we've been to Bali. We went everywhere here in Korea, and then just to be able to enjoy and spend time with my family and then still do my work was amazing, So a lot of people have that negative stigma of coming to Korea, that as if you're constantly in war or something's always happening. There's threats no matter where you go. There's alerts no matter where you go in the world, But Korea is no different. There's more activities to do. I didn't even know they had amusement park. They got 3 different amusement parks here,
Wow.
And they're all amazing. So I recommend people coming to Korea because I think it also provides you a more cultural understanding, when you get here. I love the food. I loved a lot of the opportunities. The fact that my family got to see different Asian countries while we've been here was amazing.
Great.
So I recommend it. I will recommend Korea 10 times over.
And then I'm going to show you this picture of the significance of this picture.
Okay, so the significance to this picture, like I said before, I'm from D.C. and I had a GED that the Army helped pay for. And this was important because I received my bachelor's degree in logistics and transportation management in this picture. And the fact is, my family came out to support, and this, with my whole unit, actually my whole organization came out there, from my brigade CSM to the warrant officer I worked with, and everything like that. So I had a great support system. But I wanted my family to be there because when my wife also, what people don't understand is when in the military, they help you with education, they pay for your education. So I was able to use tuition assistance to get my bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't only just take care of you; they take care of your family as well.
Okay. Yep.
My wife was able to get her bachelor's degree and
Nice.
her master's degree
Nice.
at no cost of her because
Wow.
of all the resources that's afforded to
There you
spouses
go. Mm-hmm.
to the military. So she has a bachelor's and a master's, which motivated me to go back and continue with my bachelor's. So when I got mine, my kid to me, I was able to promote education in in a household
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't grow up in. You know, like my mom had to work hard for everything, so she didn't get to go to school and do a lot of things. So she didn't have the job that paid for her to go to get her education, like I was. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I got my hard work ethics from my mom, you know, to go hard. And my mom still has that to this day. Whereas though my educational drive came from my wife,
Gotcha.
who not only raised our kids, but also was able to get her education, get her bachelor's, get her master. I went to sleep some nights and woke up and she was still doing work. And then, you know, when I flew to San Diego to watch her graduate and I watched her cross the stage because that was the first for both of us, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it drove me to keep going. So
Nice.
at this point, I wasn't even going to do a ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to get my paperwork. But my wife's like, "No, you need to do a
Yeah.
ceremony.
Nice.
The ceremony isn't for you. The
Mm-hmm.
ceremony is for your boys."
Nice.
And the fact that my sons were front row watching me get a bachelor's degree was amazing because I now set up a plateau that they now have to look at and say, I want to climb to that with my like my dad did and
Mm-hmm.
like my mom did. So, you know, it was very emotional for me because I've never got to cross the stage before. I've never got to receive a degree
Yeah.
other than military PME.
Mm-hmm.
But to do this now on a civilian side, this was something for me. You know, something that I can now. If I left the military today,
Yep.
I have
You
a
can
bachelor's
take.
degree.
Yeah.
You know, and
So basically.
I don't have debt and stuff like that from it.
Yeah, so and then you hit the nail on the head. Like sometimes we lost focus on what the army has to give us in terms of education and even to buy a house like a VA loan or VA loans, etc. In this case, you took the opportunity on all those advantages that army is giving you, not only for you, for your family and for your boys soon, because like they have GI
Mm.
bills and all the stuff that they can utilize. So I think the piece of advice that you can give if a soldier is watching this podcast or listening to this podcast is like, hey, ask for this resources. They're out there. Like sometimes we just don't know where they at, or we're just ignorant to it, but there's plenty of like incentive that we can use towards, for example, a bachelor's degree like yours,
Of
you
course,
say.
you know, and what I would say is that um, yes, okay, the military has its ebbs and flows. You know, it has its ups and downs, its trials and tribulations, or however you want to say it.
Mm-hmm.
However, you know, there are many resources and benefits because, again, when I was in DC, you know, the military already opened up the doors by giving me a GED. I mean, not giving me one, but paying for me to go
And
take the class,
mm-hmm.
paying for me to take the test, and getting the GED. And then for me to get in the military, and they not only make get my wife a bachelor's, help her with her bachelor's, help her get her a master's, help me get my bachelor's, and I'm 5 classes away from completing my master's right now, and completely debt free of all of it. You know, if you look at today's society and everyone that's going to college, when they graduate college, they have debt. They have to pay these things back. You know, college loans and things like that. There are many resources within the military that allow you to set your family up for success,
Yeah.
not just yourself. And then, like you said, VA loans on buying houses and things like that. There are many programs and opportunity that are afforded to
Yeah.
service members to give you a more promising, better way of life,
Definitely.
if that
Definitely.
is. But with everything, they do have their trials and tribulations.
Yep.
So you do have to go through it sometimes.
Yeah, so definitely, and again, yeah, San Newsome says it's free. It's not really free because we have to pay with time, like right. So if you finish, we owe some time back to the army. But if you're making this as a career, I mean, if you do 2 years in your contract, and they'll pay your bachelor's or your master's, is better than owning like 50 grand from the get-go in the civilian sector, right? So I think, and that's the first thing. The second thing is like I always advise to anyone that comes to the army, you need to understand, or you need to know what you want to get out of the army, right? And then everything you get in the army, get something that translates to the civilian sector, just in case when you hung up the uniform, or you retire, or you say, hey, this is not for me, I just want to get out of the army in 2 3 years, 4 years, I can actually do something with what I gained from the army, experiences, leadership, bachelors, etc., and I can translate that to the civilian sector.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. And then last fish, hey, it's been great conversations. I know, so I appreciate it. We are towards to the end of the podcast. I want to show you. You mentioned that you travel across the continent while in Korea. I want to show you the next picture, and then we'll be closing out this one.
All right, so this picture here, that's me and my family in Bali, and my family in the back, not the monkey. The monkey came with the picture. Yeah, they actually set the monkey on my wife's lap, and then he's like reaching for something. So it's a pretty cool picture.
Yeah.
So and I chose this picture because I wanted to end my segment of this is just emphasizing my family. As you see, I talk a lot about my family, and I think um, throughout my whole career, and from civilian to soldier to senior leader, I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for my family backing me, you
Mhm.
know. And I think you have the best situation when you have that that support system
Mhm.
established.
Mhm.
And again, I have an awesome teammate. My wife is definitely an awesome teammate,
Mhm.
and I have two wonderful kids who have understandings, because like when I had to deploy, they had to be understanding. I have a teammate that has to now assume the roles and responsibility that I had to do when I'm in my absence. So that means taking care of my kids. That means being there at all the things that I cannot be present at. So having an awesome teammate goes a long way, and I couldn't end this without acknowledging how I have that wonderful support system.
Nice.
Is it always the perfect situation? No.
No.
She gives me great advice. Do I always want to hear that great advice sometimes?
Yeah.
No. But guess what? I know that it's going to come from a genuine location. I know it's coming from a genuine spot, and all she wants is the best for not just me, but for the family in its entirety. So, um, I want to leave with that and say, um, I have that great family embellished in that nice support system, and I'm very appreciative of
Nice.
everything that my family. So who you see today wasn't who I was back then, but what you see today is a product of the support
Yeah.
system that I do have, and I appreciate
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah, and
that's what I got.
definitely, we just want to congratulate for all the great stuff you're doing. And again, sometimes we, as a service members, we need some backups, like our backbones. Like the NCOs are the backbone of the army, right? So sometimes off the uniform, we have our family that are our backbones, because like they supporting us for what we do, and sometimes they have to understand, and then they'll understand, because in your case, you're doing all this for your family, and we can like just very notable and marked throughout everything you mentioned, that your boys and your family, your mom, your wife, and etc. And then, man, so appreciated the time. Great talk, great conversation. 1 hour and 43 minutes of conversation.
Whew.
Yeah, didn't feel like, but it was a great podcast, and this, highlighting. And now I'm gonna ask you the question to close out. So, what advice you will give to anyone that's hearing this podcast, that is looking towards joining the armed forces as a whole, and they don't understand the system? And then that's the first
Well, I would.
question. That's the first question. And the second question is, what advice you will give to the service members, junior enlisted, they're watching this podcast on their career? That's the two questions.
So the first one, what I would say is this. You know, making a decision to join the military is a big decision. You know, it's a big decision. It's ultimately going to be one of the most important decisions you make. But if you walk into the doors with the thought process of I'm here to be a part of a team, I'm here to add value to what's going on in the current U.S. situation and things like that, then you'll be just fine. like I said, I've been on the end of it, the beginning of my career of not knowing or wanting to join for all the wrong reasons, for all the glam and the glamour of things like the cars and the houses. But then I understood the teamwork and the leadership and all the other aspects along the way. So I would say that, educate yourself, figure out why you really want to do it, and use that as your driving force to move forward. And then as far as the second question, what was the second
The
question one more
list,
time?
just an advice to the junior enlisted or junior soldier that listening to this podcast on their career.
So I would say, advice to them is um, be you, be you. That is very important because, like I tell anybody, being you is what gets you in the room. Being you is what gets you in the room. You're already in the uniform. You're already in the seat. Be you. Be that servant leader. Lead with passion. If you believe in something, follow through with it. A lot of times we go into these things, we go into these situations, and we're willing to fold on those morals that we have developed for ourselves. But people are watching you as you do these things.
Hmm.
So being you is what got you in the room. Being me is what got me on this podcast.
Hmm.
So at the end of the day, don't change you uh, when it got you already where you are. And like I
Yes.
said, lead with passion and be committed to the success of not just you but those that are watching.
Hey, again, Sam Newsom, appreciated the time. Thank you for this conversation. I know we have like different hours ahead. I'm in Virginia, you're in Korea. We're like 12 hours away. But again, thank you for taking your time. When I approached you that I was doing this transition for my podcast, you say yes, like with no hesitation. I do appreciate that. And again, I explained to you why I did the switch, and I'll explain later to the audience. But again, season two from episode one, well done with Simon Newsom, the service journal. I appreciate the time at this
Thank
moment.
you.
And then I'm gonna close out here, real quick. Hey, so everyone, thank you for watching this episode or listening. For don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the thumbs up on this episode. If you're watching in YouTube, subscribe to the channel. And then if you're listening, you can listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And again, thank you. We're gonna continue bringing more episodes as they come. And again, if you want to participate, you want to collaborate, you can send me a message and then we'll bring it to the show. And hey, until the next time, appreciate it. Let's go.